All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, October 13th, 2021. Let's start with roll call.
All right, thank you, commissioners. I'll go ahead and take a roll call, and I'll start with Chair Grumbine.
Here.
Vice Chair House. Vice Chair House.
I think you're muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Gordon.
Off.
Here.
Commissioner Drury is absent. Commissioner Edmonds.
Here.
Commissioner Lundig.
I think you're muted, Commissioner
Commissioner
Lundig.
Lundig.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Mahan.
Here.
Commissioner Manuel.
Here.
And Commissioner Uli is absent. So we have a quorum today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go to general business. First part of general business, item A, public comment. Any member of the public wishing to address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. Hamilton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you're attending by webinar and would like to give oral public comment, please follow the instructions on screen. And Ms. Chernovskaya, did we receive any written correspondence for general public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton and commissioners. We did not receive any general written correspondence for today's agenda. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. I do see 2 members of the public in the audience, but no hands raised at this point. So back to you, Mr. Chair and commissioners.
All right, thank you. In that case, we'll close public comment and on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting September 29th, 2021.
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mahan. All right, under discussion, any edits, discussion, changes?
I don't believe I had any.
Okay. Commissioner Lenvik?
Mr. Chair? Yes, I'm looking at page 5, the comments on the band shell. And item 3 reads, study the wrought iron railing and scroll. Study providing a more Roman solution to the railing and or a more mission revival style solution to the railing. I don't believe it was the intent to do a mission revival style, was it? And Mr. Mahan, you were commenting on that rail yourself. Does that item 3 read to you correctly?
Just as a point of clarification, it was Commissioner Mahan had said Roman. I had said mission revival as an afterthought before the motion because the style of the band shell itself is considered mission revival. It's analyzed as mission revival with its mission gable. So the additional I put that as an additional comment as part of the comment, sort of combining the two for them to try out. Commissioner Mahan?
That's my recollection as well.
That's my recollection also.
All right, fine. I'm corrected. Thank you.
Okay. Nope. Thanks for the diligence in the minutes. Other comments, edits, changes? All right. In that case, let's have a roll call vote for acceptance of the minutes.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Jordan.
Abstain.
Commissioner Edmonds.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundig.
Yes.
Commissioner Mahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel.
Abstain.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
And Chair Grumbine.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
All right, thank you. So now we are on to item C, announcements, request by, actually, I did have a question. The staff, and I see Commissioner Uli is on as well here. Question to staff about the meeting minutes, because we do also have meeting minutes from the subcommittee and for the designation subcommittee. Where should those be handled, or should those be handled, or is that a subcommittee issue, or do those need to be approved?
The designation subcommittee will approve them at their next meeting. They're meeting tomorrow, so that's why they're on the
Okay, great.
website.
Okay, perfect.
And I think it was just
All right.
FYI for the rest of the commission, so you know what we're
Yeah,
up to.
okay. Great. Gotcha. Thank you. And I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we're accepting things we need to accept and not paying attention to things or paying attention but not necessarily having emotion on other things. Thank you, and thank you to the subcommittee. Since we're in announcement, might as well roll in. Thank you for the subcommittee for your ongoing work. It's a big project and big and important project for both the designations and also the big one of the bungalow district. So, all right, announcements. Request by applicants for continuous withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Ms. Hernandez.
Yes, I have a few announcements. I guess just since we just talked about the designation subcommittee, we are meeting tomorrow virtually at 10 a.m. to discuss next steps for the Bungalow Haven after we have done the walkthrough of the neighborhood, and that's what the whole meeting's pretty much dedicated to tomorrow. My other announcements are, and I emailed the commission, but for the public, you had asked about the question of the schedule for Library Plaza. It's finalizing their bid package, and hopefully we'll get that out in a few weeks. They hope to start construction in February or March and be completed in 10 months. And I have one other announcement. I have been talking to the new owners of the Neutra House at 1322 Dover that burned down last spring. There's some left, and the new owners want to restore it to the original Neutra design. They'll be using the Secretary of Interior standards for reconstruction, and the city will allow them to reconstruct a building that burned down to its non-conforming footprint and everything. So I'm meeting them out next week, but I just wanted to keep you all apprised of that. If you didn't see the New Yorker article at the end of September, there was like a 20-page article on Neutra in the New Yorker. It was really interesting. So those are my 3 announcements.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Commissioner Edmonds, were you?
I was. I need to leave shortly after 5 o'clock today.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll be done before.
As do I, Mr. Chair.
All right. We'll definitely angle for being done by then and then. We'll getting close to losing a quorum. And actually, that one just a side note, but I figure I'll bring it up as well. One of the joys of handicaps of the of Zoomish or whatever virtual meeting is, as I'm looking down and writing notes, it's difficult to know who, especially on my laptop screen, to see everyone and seeing who's would like to speak on something. So just as a point of connection there, if you all, Mr. Lenvik does a good job of finding his camera and making his finger giant, which helps visually catch my eye, which is good. And then Commissioner Mahan or Drury are good at jumping in verbally if they're not on the screen, which is good as well. But without, and I'm gonna suggest that we try something, and we'll see if it works and helps. And if not, we can go back to our old ways. But perhaps for those who would like to speak, so you can just say chair or whatever, and then that way I know that you're wanting to speak and get in line. I'll acknowledge it, and then
How about
I'll
this?
acknowledge in order. There we go. Or do that. Do the extreme lookup. Especially as I'm trying to write down notes, I'm looking back and forth, and it's difficult to catch everyone. So if you could just make a quick note so that I'll know that you're in line to speak. So Commissioner Jordan, I see it. I think you're clapping, but I can't hear you. So that was a good example. As I'm looking down, and not noticing. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up as a point. We'll try that out. I had asked that people just raise their hand before, but I think that there might be a combination of things that we can do to make sure that I'm catching everyone. All right. Other announcements or discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chair?
In that case, oh yeah, who was that? Vice Chair House?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I forgot to wave. I believe it's not on the agenda, and I had inquired of Mr. Hamilton about the work that's going on Carrillo Street, and he reported back, and I think CC'd all commissioners, that it was just installation of new light fixtures, but it is obviously much more than that. They have totally ripped up the scored colored concrete crosswalks. You know, it looks to me like they're going to replace them as they were, but we don't know that. And I would like to get some assurance from the Public Works Department or Streets Department, whatever it is, that that is what their plan is, in which case there's no need for us to get involved. But it is in EPV, Carrillo all the way to the freeway. So it would be nice if we could be apprised of that.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hamilton, if you can guess that, report back with that assurance, that historic comfy blanket to us, so we know that it's all going to get replaced in kind. And thank you for the note of the fixtures were the pre-approved ones, the proper ones for going in. So and letting us know about that. Okay, other announcements or other items, future agenda items? If not, we'll go into subcommittee reports. Item D, subcommittee reports. Any subcommittees meet?
Mr. Chair?
Vice Chair House.
Just a word on the Plaza de la Guerra committee. We haven't met since our last HLC meeting, but we do have a meeting in November, I believe. And the objective is to return to HLC after that, though there is a tentative additional meeting in December if we need further discussion before returning to HLC. So that's the update on what's happening with that committee.
All right, thank you for that update. Other subcommittee reports? Commissioner Uli, are you talking, or is it, you might be muted. Okay, any other subcommittee reports? All right, in that case, on to item 1. So, 9, Commissioner Manuel.
Sorry, I've got to recuse myself for a conflict of interest with the owner, and I'll have a couple more after this, but I will let you know. Sorry.
We only have a couple more after this to do. All right, thank you for letting us know. Item 1, 9 West Figueroa Street, Lot 3, Paseo. This is a discussion item. Discussion regarding the Lot 3 Paseo project at 9 West Figueroa Street. This discussion will cover the plan for moving forward with phase 1 of the project, which is the closure of the existing Paseo, and phase 2, which involves creating a new pedestrian walkway and crosswalk at Figueroa Street. The commission is requested to appoint 2 subcommittee members to assist the Public Works Department with the project's design. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. All right, Mr. Hamilton, did you want to weigh in on anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way introduction, we have the Public Works Director, Clifford Maurer, here for the discussion item. And for members of the public who are listening, this is not going to be a decision on this project. This is a discussion only. And we have the minutes and the plans that were reviewed at the previous hearing here just for reference. All right, I think that's all I've got. So Mr. Maurer, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
All right, thank you. Well, welcome, Mr. Maurer. And if you want, we can do, I don't know if you have slides or anything to walk through, but or just have it as a discussion or have pieces up. But if you do, we can go through these minutes first and then go into that presentation, or if you have anything to present or.
Well, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I do not have slides. I did want, since this is my first opportunity to be in front of you, I just want to do a quick introduction of myself.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cliff Maurer. I've been with the city now for just over 2 months as the Public Works Director. I come to Santa Barbara from 7 years in the city of Coronado as the Public Works Director there. A smaller city, but similar in that coastal, iconic, and very steeped in history with the Historic Resources Commission that I am certain is on par with Santa Barbara's Historic Landmarks Commission in their passion and desire to preserve the historic nature and the character of the city. So I'm not going to be so bold as to say I know Santa Barbara inside and out. I clearly don't, but I think I have a very good appreciation for what is important to this community, its residents, its businesses, and its guests to maintain what has made Santa Barbara what it is, and that's really its historic nature. So, and then prior to my 7 years in Coronado, I was a Naval Civil Engineer Corps officer for a full, almost 30-year career, and managing infrastructure for the Navy and Marine Corps throughout the nation and the globe. So that was a very fulfilling career. And as you can imagine, one of my duty stations was Pearl Harbor, where I served for 2 years. And there is nothing in Pearl Harbor that isn't historic. So I have a great appreciation for operating or having a modern operation in a very historic setting and making it all work. Not to say there aren't tensions, but we managed to make it all work. So with that, Chair, I'll turn it back to you if you want to go through the minute or the agenda, and then I am prepared to discuss this project and where we're at.
Okay, great. All right. Well, welcome. And 2 minutes in, this will be an easy one, I'm sure. So to start you off with, I'm just kidding. But welcome. It's good to have you. And I wish we were in person. Okay, so I'll go through the minutes from last time, and then we'll go to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. And unless Mr. Hamilton tells me otherwise, I think that'll probably be the appropriate sequence. So from last time we had a straw vote. How many commissioners support removing the temporary fencing? It was 8-0. It passed. There was another straw vote. How many commissioners support removing the temporary fencing and have it come back to the commission as part of an application? It was 8-0. It passed. So the motion was continue indefinitely with the following comments. The temporary fencing shall be removed immediately. If temporary fencing is proposed, it shall return to the commission for approval. 2, applicant shall return with a comprehensive solution to the Paseo, which could be either restoring the Paseo to its previous attractive state or to pursue the suggestions of the previous motion from 2018 that involved the Paseo on the side adjacent to the parking lot. Any proposal shall be comprehensive and accomplish all work at same time. The proposal for replacement of the Paseo on the parking lot side shall be more than a walkway and shall be a traditional Paseo which requires sufficient width, landscaping, and structure on both sides. 3, provide historic drawings of the original Paseo. The motion was by House, second by Drury. It was 8-0-0. Manuel is absent. The motion carried. All right. Okay, so that's our summary of our last motion. And so now, Mr. Hamilton, is probably appropriate to go to public comment. Is that what you're? Yeah. Oh, great. We have some drawings too. Okay, great, perfect. Why don't we walk through these real fast so that we have? And I'm assuming these are the drawings from the last time we saw this project, and it was the proposal that it was. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And if I may make one suggestion, I think it might be productive if, Mr. Maurer gives a response to the minutes before opening up public comment. It would be up to you, but I do suggest that as a route to go. And then it can be just a more general discussion after that.
Okay, sounds good. I like that idea. I think that makes sense. So, and if you would like, Mr. Maurer, if you did want to both respond, and then we can also flip through the drawings and look at what was the previous time we had a set of drawings to review.
Correct. Thank you, Chair Grumbine, and that is what I would prefer to do. So, as I stated, I'm new here, and this item came before me, I believe the first week I was here. So, Mr. Paul Casey was still city administrator at that time, and of course, there was correspondence between members of the HLC and city council that was sent to city administrator and tasked me to investigate and come up with a way forward across several issues, this specific topic, and improving interaction relations between Public Works and Historic Landmarks Commission. So I obviously took that to heart, researched where we were at, and talked to a lot of folks and decided, where is the best way forward. So in not making this easy, my research came up with the situation that this improvement was in front of HLC, as you stated in the motion comments back in 2018, in which it was forwarded, approved, and then went to city council. So as the legislative body for the city, they approved it on November 6, 2018, to go ahead with the design, and that included the temporary closing of the Paseo while phase 1 of this project was designed and then contracted and ultimately implemented. So don't want to make any mistakes that this project, as it goes through its phases, obviously is going to have a Historic Landmarks Commission oversight and guidance as it goes forward. But and then of course, being brand new, I personally met with every council member. I put forth a plan forward stating that there's concern that the intent for Public Works was to keep the temporary fencing in place. And that's because the city has a health and safety issue there, which city's #1 responsibility to its residents, businesses, and guests is public safety. And this has been a pervasive public safety issue that was exacerbated during the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter in reaction to the George Floyd murder. So in balancing a lot of competing needs, desire is to keep the temporary fencing in place. However, with the establishment of an ad hoc group, certainly, and I'll take, I'm sitting in the chair, so I'll take responsibility that the temporary fencing installation should have and could have been better coordinated. And I clearly get that message that, and understand it, that, the Historic Landmark Commission, as well as the residents and people who are affected, don't want to be surprised. As much as possible, other than exigent situations, want to have as much heads up and ability to comment, influence on going forward. So the intent is to keep the temporary fencing up, but my intent is to ensure that my department works with the Historic Landmarks Commission and the two members who are, specifically with the two members who are assigned, to make possible improvements to the appearance of the temporary fencing. And then what's most important is to press forward and apply the right amount of resources to get this done quickly, to get the design underway, get the process of putting that design together, which of course includes Historic Landmarks Commission approval, comments, incorporation of comments, and marrying that closely with the phase 2 of the project. So we have a path of travel in this Paseo, which is not used that much. It does require, there's one business, it's the sole entrance to that business. The others, it's mostly back of shop. So there's issues there that we're working with the business owners to make sure that they all have the necessary access, both operationally and appearance-wise. But we'd like to get the final product designed and implemented. And then, of course, with the West Figueroa mid-block, phase 2 part of the project, that is where most people are transiting. It's not particularly safe the way it's set up right now. And we want to make that proper and function well within the historic landscape of that area. So that's where we're at right now. And certainly willing to take comments, answer questions. But
Okay.
I know the moving forward is a big desire to get away from the temporary and work towards the permanent.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Commissioner Lennick, in a minute, I think we want to finish the presentation portion or that, and we'll get into our discussion now, in a minute, but I want to get public comment first. But before we do that, I do want to flip through the drawings from last time, because we specifically talked about them in 2018, just so that we've gone through them, and then we can go to public comment, and then we can come back and have our discussion. This is agendized for the next 40 minutes, so I also want to make sure we use our time wisely so we can get through all discussions and key points, so that we can have a good, thorough discussion about it. So if we can kind of flip through briefly, we'll try to do this in the next couple minutes, but briefly flip through. Commissioners and Commissioner Lenvick, feel free to point out along the way key items as well, so that we make sure that we have visually identified them as part of our discussion, and we can come back to these for sure and pull them back onto the screen after a public comment. So why don't we just walk through what was submitted last time so that it's fresh in everyone's mind as to what was the plan that had been approved previously. So if we could just do a page turn through this. How many pages is this? Like 5 pages? Yeah, I saw. Okay, great. So and I'm not sure Mr. Maher, if you want to just, quickly outline on each page what the plan was that was approved, and as part of this, and just
Chair
point it
Grunbein,
out, or
if okay, Ms. Swanson's online and she is the technical expert here. So if it's okay, she will do a better job than I can do on the specifics.
had a while, and it's also good to be part of this discussion to be clear as to what was approved, when it was approved, and then all of our comments on it. So, please, Ms. Swanson.
Hi, Chair Grunbein. So the plans before you today are actually what you reviewed 2 months ago. These are the most recent
gotcha.
closure
Okay.
plans. These are not what you saw in 2018. However, in 2018, you did see a very similar concept. You saw a couple alternatives for the closure portion specifically. So you'll see in the upper left the concept of concrete walls and decorative gates. That concept was brought to you in 2018, along with another alternative with wrought iron gates. But I don't have those plans here. I'm not sure. Wasn't prepared to go over those originally, but again, in 2018, you were reviewing on a conceptual level the concept of closing the Paseo, and then the concept of constructing a new Paseo or walkway on the other side of the building adjacent to the driveway entrance. We do have a concept plan. Sorry, go ahead.
And I remember now how it played out. So, but this one was what we just saw with this one was the proposal for the half of it that was closing the Paseo. We didn't see the other half, which was what was going to happen to the how the path was going to get worked around and reconnected. And now I get and understand this portion of it. Is there the plan that showed the other portion that we can see, or can it be found? It doesn't have to be shown right now. If we don't have it, can it be pulled up, Timmy or Ted or someone? Can we get that as well, just so we have at least the 2018 site plan of it? Because I think that's going to be a question from others, if not from myself, about it as well.
Chair, I do have that plan and I can prepare it if Ms. Swanson.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, well, go ahead. Sorry, Ms. Swanson, go ahead. If you can walk us through these, and then we can shift to the other or shift to public comment if we need to.
Okay, sure. So again, the concept here was to close both ends of the Paseo. The other items that would occur would be removal of the existing columns that are part of an old trellis that was installed many years ago, and to resurface those areas where they were moved. What is not shown on here, but we know will need to be provided, and we can provide it on the next plan iteration, is a tier 1 SWIMP implementation, which would likely be a freestanding planter of 12 square feet to meet tier 1 SWIMP requirements. So there's opportunities within the Paseo for example, screening the SCE transformer, even more so with that landscaping. Otherwise, this proposal is pretty straightforward with regard to the closure. Let's see if there's any other. Could we go to the next?
Do you want to just flip through the
next sheet?
Flip through the rest of the sheet.
And these get into the details again of the gates, which we looked at last time. And I believe the last 2 sheets are structural details. Yeah. For installation. So, yeah, and those are the proposed gate colors and wall colors.
Gotcha.
For both ends. yeah, we can flip through these. We went through these last time. Those are the columns that are no longer there. This is an old picture showing what it looked like prior to the installation of the transformer. You can go to the next photo. As you all saw before, that is the transformer that exists now. Next slide, please. Again, these columns would all be removed as part of the project. Next slide. That's looking back towards Figueroa Street, just another view. That cabinet on the, excuse me, on the left is just a storage cabinet. Next photo, please. And then this is looking again at the, towards the rear, towards lot 3, the 2 existing trash enclosures on both sides of the Paseo would remain. And that right there, you can see on the left, sorry, was the entrance to the one business that takes access through the Paseo, where the Evolve sign is shown. Next photo, please. Just another view again, taken from lot 3, looking into the Paseo from the rear. Next photo. And just sort of a backed up view from lot 3 again, looking at the situation we're trying to remedy, which is dumpsters and carts that tend to float around the parking lot, which is out of compliance. Next slide, photo. And this is just showing the adjacent trash enclosures. Those are actually on private property behind Walter Claudio's business, just, I would say, west of the Paseo. And that may be the last photo. Yeah, that's it. So, let me know if you need me to pull up the previously reviewed concept for the mid-block crossing, and I can assist with that.
Ms. Swanson, I believe Mr. Bolton is pulling that up as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We need some Jeopardy music.
And I do know what you looked at in 2018, there was a landscape concept, and then there was also an engineering rendering. And since that time, the engineering rendering has been developed a little bit more, but we haven't, just pending sort of this discussion, we haven't gone back with the landscape touches to it yet. Yeah, so there's just the engineering rendering that you saw last time.
So
Again,
this is the 2018?
yeah. Yes. And again, the concept here was
and just to orient us, so the Paseo that we were just looking at that's in question was just off screen, up, right?
correct. Yeah, it would just be north on the other side of the building. And then, of course, parking lot 3 is shown there, and Figueroa Street we're looking at. And the crossing is generally in line with the access across the street that leads to lot 4, which is used, I believe, as also somewhat delivery back of house, but also pedestrians use it as well. So the concept here that was brought in front of you was to realign the driveway entrance into the parking lot. As you can see, it shifts to the west and add a new pedestrian pathway between the building and the vehicular entrance. And then, as you can see, the curb line comes out significantly with as it leads up to basically it's a large curb extension and a shortening of the crossing. And This was in response to, I believe it was in 2017, studying pedestrian movements and where people walked, and we did several counts back then, and there was an obvious pattern of people taking this route basically adjacent to the vehicular driveway, and then crossing the street mid-block heading towards Savoy and other areas over there. So obviously, this was a safety improvement as well. That was the goal for this this design. So I think you also probably saw you did see a landscape rendering in 2018. Yep. I don't think the two are quite matched up yet. They're in concept form.
And do we have that one to look at or no?
Mr. Chair, I don't think we have that one available, but Ms. Swanson, if you have that, please send it on over and we'll get it up on screen.
Okay, will do. I'll look for that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And for the sake of keeping things moving in time, let's go to public comment now, and then we'll come back and we'll probably have some more questions and discussions for you, Ms. Swanson and others. All right. So any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please click on the green arrow hand icon, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you're attending by webinar and would like to give oral public comment, please follow the instructions on screen. And while we wait for hands to raise, Ms. Tarnowskaya, would you let us know if we got any written correspondence, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hamilton and commissioners. We did receive written correspondence for this item from Lisa Saldivar and Charles Valle, which was distributed to the commission before this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I only see one hand raised at this time. Lisa Brigante, I'm going to unmute you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead. Lisa Brigante, I see that your mic is green, but we can't hear you right now. You appear to be connected to audio. Still can't hear. If you try switching your audio from computer audio to phone and then back again, that might help. Okay, Ms. Brigante, I'm going to mute you again. Hopefully we'll be able to hear you soon, but I did see a hand raised by Charles Valle. So Charles Valle, I'm going to unmute you, and please correct me if I mispronounced your name.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So quite frankly, I'm really disappointed because this has been going on for 3.5 years. And I supported the SC to put the transformer because the proposition was to landscape the area, and I thought was a good thing to do. But nothing has been done. I mean, they took off 1 or 2 columns to put the transformer and left all the others, which is very unsightly. And at the moment, we have incredible amount of trash right across our building. I mean, everybody leaves his trash can or the trash just across our office entrance. So, quite frankly, I mean, for me, the most important is to change the appearance of this alley, not to have the trash in front of our building, not to have trash cans from other business. Some of them are not even in the alley and left the trash can in front of our office. And the columns is very important to us, and also the surface. I think simply asphalt would be fine, but just one material. You know, right now there's multiple material on this surface for years. And it's very difficult for us. I mean, Of course, it attracts homeless, it attracts all kind of peoples because the area is so run down that every normal people avoid passing there. So I think if it was looking normal, like a normal passage, maybe it would be a lot better. So I support closing the area because it has been a problem for so many years. But to me, the most important and the most urgent is to stop having all this trash all over the Paseo and to resurface it and to take off the columns, because we had so many meetings on that. And, sometimes 10 people meetings, a lot of people from the city, of course. So it's very, very bad use of the city funds, I think, to have all these meetings and nothing is happening. So I think in matter of urgency, I think that the first thing is to clean up the area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Lisa Brigante, I'm going to return to you now. I'm going to unmute you. And if you click the microphone icon, hopefully we'll be able to hear you this time.
Good afternoon.
Hello, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. Yes, Lisa Brigante. I am a property owner of an adjacent property to the Paseo, 1025 State Street. And I've been following the proposed closure and relocation of the Paseo for many years, and did attend the meeting in 2018 and spoke at that time also. I do support closing the Paseo because of the health and safety issues that we have with it. And I also don't like the idea of it just being a very large trash enclosure, which is what it's become now, with no real designated spaces for any particular bins. They just are all over the place. And I also would highly support the two projects being linked together and happening at the same time. There's no handicap access to the parking lot now unless they go through the area where the cars are entering. There's no ramp in the little sidewalk that's been provided from Figueroa Street to the parking lot. And while I was there 2 days ago, a woman was crossing with her attendant, and she had a very hard time getting down that curb into it. And I know the history of the city, that it takes forever to get anything accomplished. And if we let the Paseo go closed without also providing new entrance, it'll be years before that particular project gets going. And in the meantime, we have no access back and forth for people that are going to our stores on State Street. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I do see a few more attendees by webinar. So just as a last reminder, if you wish to give an oral public comment at this time, please follow the instructions on screen. Give it a few more seconds. Okay, so seeing no hands raised, back to you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. All right, so we'll close public comment. We'll back to the commission. So this is a discussion item. So perhaps let's there might be other points in addition to what the city has brought forth as a request, which is to have two members of this commission to work with them for this going forward. And there's a lot of aspects to talk about. So if you could, let's try to be succinct enough that everyone can get a turn to talk about it, and then we can try to reach a consensus afterwards. So who wants to start off with, and we'll try to make it as a discussion, but we'll start with commenting and then we can work into discussion. Commissioner Lenvik, that you have.
Thank you.
Oh, here, and here's the landscape. Oh, sorry, to cut back here. So just so we know what we're looking at here, this is the landscape plan that was part of, but not totally fully integrated with the other visualization we had, which was a colorized civil plan of sorts. Is that correct? To staff?
Chair Gurman, that's correct.
Oh, yeah.
This is a landscape concept plan you all, or most of you, reviewed in 2018.
Okay, great. and I see that on there is that the concepts of the gates that were part of the proposed during that time as well. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Very similar to the current proposal with the exception of the color.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, great. All right. Back to you, Commissioner Lenvick.
Thank you. One of the things before I get to my comments, the landscape plan has no relationship to the engineering plan that they showed. And we got to keep that in mind. And of course, the gates on both ends of the paseo were commented on that they were, we wanted to see a modification of what they were doing before they would consider before we could consider the wall and gates. But what I want to, what became kind of a concern to me, the public works director was on the job several weeks before or this occurred. He had time to talk to the city council members, but I would have thought that it would have been so easy to simply come back to the ABR with a letter or whatever saying, I read your minutes. I read your request, number one, that the fence be removed, and we simply cannot do that for whatever reasons. And please bear with us. But he chose to ignore landmarks and our concerns about the paseo. And we, very clearly pointed out that we would not consider closing the paseo with appropriate, fencing and gates and whatever without seeing the plan for the paseo that they were going to move to the west. And, none of that has happened. And it concerns me that what I hear from the Public Works Department is that they're still kind of looking for a way to get around doing what is the right thing. And he talks about the Public Works Director talks about a phase 2 walkway or paseo or whatever to the west. But in our comments before, we aren't willing to accept a phase 2 because we're concerned that we'll never get it. But I think they're still ignoring that and possibly thinking they can get away without dealing with HLC in a collegial and cooperative manner by simply not doing it and going to city council. And that concerns me. We should really expect to see some meaningful solutions, both at the existing paseo and their future, meaningful solutions that we can get our teeth into and work with them on, as opposed to being ignored and kind of anticipate that they're going to get their way in any case, and that concerns me. So I did not hear anything from the Public Works Director that made me feel really good about the Public Works Department working with us and cooperating with us on this and other projects as well. I just did not hear that, and I have to apologize to the Public Works Director because he's moved into a difficult situation here, but we really in Santa Barbara have a concern about our historic district, and we want to be careful that we don't allow it to get away from us. It has, with regard to the to what's happened in the last year and a half down on State Street, and we just can't continue to allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenvick.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to go next as a comment?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, I finally showed up. I apologize for being late. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner
Well, that's the beauty of just by phone. I didn't know that you were late or when you showed up. So good.
Well,
Being able to sneak in there.
Well, thank you. I'm so much under the radar. So I agree with Commissioner Lenvick. It does seem to be, I sympathize with the new Public Works Director for that very reason, but I think that there's no way we should accept the closure of that paseo without the absolutely concurrent construction of the new one. In fact, I think the new one should supersede the closing of that Paseo. And I walked through there a couple times this last week, and I'm really surprised that the Paseo became such a clutter. I think it was allowed to be done that way. There is trash everywhere. Ms. Briganti is absolutely right. And it's really kind of shameful how that Paseo was treated. Now it's become a thing, as opposed to something that is a clear walkway to Figueroa Street. And I would not support anything that does not allow for the closure of that Paseo and probably the already constructed new Paseo and the crosswalk in the middle of Figueroa. It's a shame that it's been allowed to go this far. Those are my comments to this point.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Drury.
Mr. Chair, Mahan here.
Commissioner Mahan.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we have to recognize that these businesses that back up onto to the Paseo, they do need a back of house. They don't have a back of house. They've got to have places for trash. They've got to have places for delivery. And the Paseo was probably not a good idea to begin with, because it did away with back of house, and they have to have that. But I do agree that this should be one project, and the head of the Public Works said that safety is the first priority of the city, and the existing Paseo isn't safe, and I can understand that. But the people that park in lot number 3 and want to go to Figueroa Street do not have a safe passageway now to get to the sidewalk. So the exiting from Paseo for parking lot number 3 to Figueroa Street is also a safety issue. And I think it's incumbent upon the Public Works to make the new Paseo along the west side of the building a part of this project, and to get both of them done at once, and then that will solve the problem, giving the businesses their back of house and giving the people that park in lot number 3 a safe passageway to Figueroa Street. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mahan. Who would like to go next? Commissioner Jordan, you want to take a shot at it?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And first of all, I want to say welcome to Mr. Maurer and thank him for his service in the Navy. And now let's get down to business in Santa Barbara. I endorse the comments of the other commissioners, particularly about linking the closing of one with the creation of a new pedestrian passageway. I'm also very concerned and do not understand why closing the Paseo and turning it into a trash enclosure is a good step. Why not have a trash enclosure in the parking lot rather than in the Paseo? I think that would make it easier for trash removal vehicles to service, among other things. But most importantly, I have the following comment. An email was shared with this commission. It was an email from Dan Rowell to a property owner, which said at one point, this arrangement, meaning the property owner paying for a fee for trash removal, will also help the city more quickly evaluate and hopefully approve any future site improvement or tenant improvement building permits. That sounds uncomfortably to me like a quid pro quo. And I do not believe that the Public Works Department should promise quick and easy building permit removal, building permit approvals in El Pueblo Viejo, which would require HLC involvement. So I would ask Mr. Maurer to work with city staff to make sure that future correspondence does not suggest quid pro quos like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Other comments? Commissioner Edmonds?
I agree with all of the other commissioners' comments, but I'm disturbed by just thinking about the safety issue. I completely get it. I completely support the businesses needing safe passage for their customers and back of house, as Commissioner Mahan said. But I don't think, do we really want to set a precedent by walling off areas in our city for safety, to make them more safe? It gives me this immediate, or evokes this thought of a medieval village where we have to wall the city so that the invaders can't get in, which I know that's not the situation here, but I just feel that there is a safety issue and it should be taken care of by the city like they do in other areas, by policing it and by patrolling. But walling an area off just doesn't seem like the right approach to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Edmonds. Anyone else that hasn't gone,
Mr.
like to go, Vice Chair House?
I agree with all the comments that have been made so far, but I especially would say that the comments of the last two commissioners resonate with me. I am just not convinced that closing the Paseo is a necessity. And I think of other Paseos, some of them are more developed and more attractive than others, but there are others that serve back of house function as well, and they haven't been closed off. I would volunteer to be one of the commissioners on this subcommittee, but I really favor kind of doing a rewind and starting over, thinking from the very beginning. I remember I was not on HLC in 2015 when there was an earlier project proposed. And at that time, HLC, to my knowledge, suggested putting a trash enclosure in the parking lot. And subsequently, it went to the Downtown Parking Commission, which rejected that idea. So rather than get together and see if there was some way to compromise and make that work, it was just flat out rejected. I just think there's been inadequate collaboration and discussion from a number of players involved. And I, may be convinced of the necessity of closing it, but I just don't feel like the starting place should be, okay, it's got temporary closures and they're going to become permanent ones and there's nothing we can do about it. I think we should, talk about this and figure out what's the best solution. But I certainly agree that there needs to be some way of making a commitment that other parts of the project are going to happen concurrently, and not just a vague promise of some time when there's funding available. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair House. Commissioner Uli?
I'm struggling. I'm bothered and concerned that this once charming little Paseo has been allowed to be hijacked with, there's no romantic way to say it, crap. And so I'm bothered by it. Overall, in terms of Paseos, I don't believe they need to line up, and no disrespect to our engineering colleagues, they don't need to line up. It's always nice to have them jig and jog and meander between buildings and around corners and across streets and et cetera. That I think that's what adds to their charm. And I 100% agree with Vice Chair House that we ought to pause and rewind and completely rethink the necessity to close this particular one and construct a new one. Notwithstanding the fact that it has a big old ugly transformer in the middle of it, which apparently can't be solved, but a good design can mask it. A quote from Frank Lloyd Wright would say that a doctor can bury his mistakes and all the architect can do is plant a vine to cover it up. So, let's landscape the thing and fix the problem. and keep the Paseo, and find a solution that provides a common trash enclosure in the parking area, like many other solutions have been had to solve back of house issues, so that we can keep it open. I believe that that would be a less expensive solution than constructing a completely new one. And if the funding is a concern, and the reason why the two elements were disconnected, then that should go to some effort to solve that problem. I'm not looking to be on the subgroup. I think I'm already busy enough with the designation stuff, so I'm not looking to join that group, but think we should pause and rewind and rethink.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Uli. Other comments? Commissioner Lenvik?
Yes, I would like to make a follow-on to what Steve Hausen and Robert Uli have said. If they ultimately develop a Paseo along the west side of the existing building there, or where the driveway is now, I mean, they stand to lose maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4, they stand to lose maybe a half a dozen parking spaces. And they probably could very easily get a community trash enclosure in lot 3, where the perpendicular spaces are, by using maybe as few as 4 parking spaces. So, if the transportation committee or the parking committee or whatever say we don't want to lose any parking places, well, they're going to lose parking places simply by designing a new Paseo. And they will lose less probably by, putting a good trash enclosure right in the parking area where the trash trucks can get to it quickly. They aren't wheeling stuff in and out through, across paving, dripping, grease or whatever, and give us the Paseo back, and give us good lighting and places where people can't hide or sleep or whatever. Give us some safety patrols by the police, and I think we will end up with something which is much better. Also, as a final comment, the walkway or Paseo across Figueroa Street that they're trying to line up with is private property, and that could go away tomorrow. I mean, it's already got cars parking on it. I mean, there's no reason why we should be trying to justify solely on the basis of that access across the street, realigning or placing a new Paseo to the west. It just is not justified, because you're not going to get what you're going across the street. And I think you really ought to look carefully at what you're doing and try not to bring to us something which is transparently a cheap and easy solution as opposed to the right solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Lenvik. So to tack on now my own comments, sort of a mixed bag between a couple different commissioners, but and with a little bit of maybe a different twist as well. Although I, in general, almost always try to not advocate for going backwards, because it does weaken a review body's sort of consistency, and we should always be trying to converge on the solution with the applicant, and not be going backwards and making relitigate things. At the same time, I think that our comments when we did see this in 2018 were not a glowing go forward and this is going to be a great thing. It was more of a if this is the absolute best that can be done, then we'll begrudgingly accept this closing of the Paseo and going this other way. So because it was so strongly, and because I also think that there might be a solution that's less expensive, that's actually better, like a lot of the commissioners have been mentioning, especially Commissioner Lenvik at the end there might be, and Vice Chair House, there might be a solution that's actually better and more doable and lets you have more parking spaces even, and doesn't create a paseo that's not really a paseo because there's not really a passage between walls or between defined boundaries, and you're trying to force it with some other landscape way. With all those things considered, I think that there might be a good solution out there that actually checks all the boxes and does more and actually keeps the paseo where it is. One comment I would have about the unsuccessfulness of this paseo, and unfortunately with the what's it called, the electrical box just makes it even worse, have been centered. But actually the biggest problem I think with this paseo that makes it feel so unsafe is that all the clutter in the center, because you can't really see a clear path through, and so the transformer just makes it worse. But the trees actually are in the way, and the columns in the way. And usually I do like things, and especially on access, but there's so little room that all the clutter really makes it feel super unsafe because you really can't see around any corner. And so I think that there might very well be a solution that actually declutters this, and even some of the other trash enclosures, other things that are there, and then moving those out to the parking lot might be an actual really good solution. So that's my sort of general take on it as well. And Mr. Marr, I thank you for coming on board. Unfortunately, when you did, it was it's a bit of a landmine that you stepped in the first 2 months. But with that, I'm hopeful that Public Works, as other departments, I think that we've been seeing, especially in the last couple of months, been successful at bringing things to us earlier rather than later, and trying to work with HLC rather than it turning into an issue that becomes appeal cases of the city to the city council. I appreciate your voicing of wanting good intentions and working with us early on, or working with us well. So we would definitely like that, and to develop that relationship more. It's sounding like and we can discuss it more, but I think that we are, the HLC in general is converging on the idea of both, for sure, no matter what. I think no one has said anything, but we want to see all the projects happen at the same time for this, so there's not a parsing out, so that we closing off the paseo and then doing this at this later date, which we're worried will never happen or won't happen for years and years. So we want to see everything for sure together as a holistic project. I think that they've asked that 2 members of HLC work with Public Works for this, and so I do think that would be helpful. I think that as well as part of that would be, and it sounds like both from Commissioner Lenvik and Vice Chair House, Commissioner Uli, who agrees but is stepping back so he doesn't get volunteered, which is a smart move. But that we would first, as part of this, or as part of this process, want to look at the possibility of trying to make this paseo work, and some other perhaps unthought of or untried at this time. And I would say the 2015 comment to now, 2015, I think 6 years later, we're actually at a different place in terms of at least a move in views of parking to some degree, but also with perhaps a clever solution. We don't have to be at a different place, because now they can look at losing 6 spaces versus losing 4 spaces, or things like that. So I think that we might be able to get there with the newer views of both parking, but also of the circulation and the paseos. One note I did want to add to the discussion of crossing. I do think that and I think our paseo plan at least visually indicates this, of trying to connect across streets, at least in somewhat of a close alignment. I agree paseos do jig and jog and that, but I think that at least the mid-block crossings are meant to be somewhat of alignment, so that you would naturally know, oh, there's a continuation of something that I can go through the block that way as well. So I do think that that's a good approach in general, because it's a little more visually helpful. I still think that for all the other reasons, it makes sense to look at if there's any possibility of making the Paseo work, which might actually save money and be better for parking. So the other comments I heard were also, the communication issue with Public Works was brought up by their commissioner as well. So we thank Mr. Meyer for part of this path forward. Hopefully, as we go forward with this project as a sort of a kickoff project. Let's see. Any other comments that Commissioner Drury?
Mr. Chair, yes. In keeping with Commissioner House's rewind idea, I've been on the commission for a little while, and it would be instructive if we had everything that was presented to us about that Paseo from the get-go, from the beginning, because I cannot imagine that Paseo was approved by us with all the pillars and the proposed landscaping and dang Edison box. It would be very instructive, certainly for me and maybe for everyone else, to see the true laid down history in terms of the minutes and the presentations. Is that possible to get?
I think that at least some of that or most of that was probably fairly easy to get as part of the process of when things were built, when things were, when the various columns and other things were put in.
Yeah, it just seems to me that when it came before us in the original, it was a Paseo. It was clear, it was uncluttered, and over the years it's sort of become like the forgotten stepchild, and now it's a really, as Commissioner Uli so eloquently put it, full of crap. And there's no other way to put it. And I would support either concurrent destruction and construction, or a revitalization of the existing Paseo, and certainly not to wall it off without at least some effort on our part to make it proper. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Drury. And so along those lines, it seems like and they've asked for two commissioners to do a subcommittee or at least a meeting with and discussion with, and it sounds like that the commission is pretty universally. No, I haven't heard anyone not say that they would want the Paseo to be looked at, the potential of I don't want to say quite rewinding, because I think we can still look at it concurrently, because some parts of the rewinding thing is that the things were done in stages. So the pushback of 2015 of moving the trash out might actually be able to reconsider now that there's another alternative, which actually takes out more parking. So things did happen in a timeline, and there actually just might provide an opportunity for not a rewind, but just a relook at the potentials for the Paseo now that there's this other way of solving this that has been brought forward, and which we had commented on from before. So there now might be a way of actually looking at how really serious it could be to actually be able to make the Paseo great again. And I think the request was for two members of HLC, and I think that does make sense to look at this, to study it with the city, and to see if there's other options that could be come up with, or ways of moving forward that might be preferable. So Vice Chair House, you didn't unvolunteer yourself. Like Commissioner Uli did.
I would never do that.
And Commissioner Lenvik, you've also been the strongest, most passionate about this and bringing it forward as well. Would both of you be up for?
I don't know that, Mr. Chair, I don't know that the Public Works would be happy with me. Maybe we shouldn't be concerned about that. But I am on the State Street Advisory Committee, which is also a commitment of time on my part. I think Michael Drury would be a good member of the two-member committee if he would serve. But if it's down to nobody, then I certainly would accept. But I think there are other people that could do it.
Okay.
And Dennis Jordan could do it. Michael Drury could do it. Any number of people could.
Okay. So
I'd like to encourage Commissioner Edmonds to sit on if she's willing.
My term is expiring at the end of the year. Otherwise, I would be happy to, but I don't think it makes sense. But thank you, Commissioner Lee.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, I will reluctantly accept Mr. Commissioner Lembeck's suggestion, and I would be pleased to serve with Commissioner House.
All right. Great.
As
Thank
would
you
I
both.
with you.
All right. Thank you both for your volunteering and accepting of serving this subcommittee meeting. And I would ask the staff, is there any other part of this that you would like us to discuss or give recommendations or anything on?
If I could.
Sure.
First, I wanted to clarify and apologize to Commissioner Lenbeck that when I said I met with council members, I met with them in the purpose of being a brand new director to the city, not on this specific subject. However, I did meet with them after I had responded to my boss at the time, Mr. Paul Casey's request to address this issue, which he shared with council members. And so two of them commented that they liked my response. Others were neutral, said nothing about it. I didn't receive any correspondence back. So I wanted to clarify that. It wasn't something on the side specific to this. And also on Commissioner Lenbeck said that Public Works might not want to work with him. I will work with any commissioner on any commission. I understand how these things work. I understand everyone's passion, and we might not always agree, but I will always be professional. Always, take your comments and concerns to heart. I know we're short on time, but with the discussion here, and I realize that this is not an act of the Historic Landmarks Commission, but you put me crosswise with direction I have from City Council, and listening to all your concerns, and I agree that the path that we've gotten to, and excuse the pun, at this point is not pretty. And as you know, I'm brand new, so I'm looking at this with outsider eyes. We have temporary fencing there that I would love to get to a permanent solution, to get through and not make all of you, all our residents, businesses, guests, have to look at that for one day longer than necessary. And so, what I would hope we can do, and I myself can't make a absolute guarantee because I don't have complete control in this area, but I will advocate hard to put these two projects together and move it quickly. And I want to do that with Vice Chair Howes and Commissioner Drury to help me, help my staff, improve what we have there now and get the two projects together, get them in a format that might not be perfect, but that's acceptable, that we can move forward and move on from this situation, which I understand is not perfect. The rewind really concerns me because I don't think the health and safety issue goes away. So temporary fencing stays up for a long, long time. And we have to go back to City Council and get them to rewind the direction they've already given us, because I have direction from council to move ahead with these two designs. So those are my comments. I do want to work with the Historic Landmarks Commission to come up with the best solution we can, but timely. I absolutely agree with you. This has been going on far too long, and we need to get to a solution that's permanent and appropriate. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And as I had mentioned, I almost never, in fact, it's actually, this might be the first time I've ever on HLC actually advocated for a rewind, or we'll call it a rewind. I don't think it's a rewind, it's a relook. But to in some way not going forward, but pausing and taking a zoom out view. So I don't think it's take it lightly at all as well. But I am hopeful that with a good couple meetings, maybe a good meeting, maybe a good 2 meetings with Vice Chair House and Commissioner Drury, and with a number of public works people that can know the problems and know the issues, and working in architecture, this happens regularly, and try to get together a meeting of the minds and actually look at this point, look at a couple of perhaps clever or perhaps other not thought of outside the box, or now that we know what it's going to involve to go this other way, to at least look at all those other options and get those things on the table, I think could be a really helpful and potentially, even though it might take a little bit more jigging and jogging and process, or a lot more, but I'm hoping just a little more. In the end, it might actually be a faster or better solution if there's something that could be thought, that can be seen that's clever, that can actually work. And if there's not, then at least it has been exhausted in that way with all the professionals, and with two more professional HLCers to perhaps throw some ideas out there. Yes, Vice Chair House.
I would like to suggest that I would think it would be very productive if 1 or 2 council members were part of the working group, because it seems to me that whatever they approved was absent input from HLC. So they didn't really know what our kind of concerns would be and what other possibilities there were. And if there's a conflict between direction given by council and what we are saying today, it seems like they're essential parties to the working group. Of course, things are in flux because who knows going to be elected.
Yeah,
so that's a potential challenge. But
so yeah, and that's a good point. And yeah, so I don't know if that is, and from the staff point of view, obviously everyone wants to get this moving quickly. I don't know if that would be a deal breaker to try to rope in a city council member or two to have input in this, or be part of this process and see some of the thinking with a potential solution that might come out of it, or whether that would just make it more difficult. Commissioner Lendick, did you want to?
Yes, the Landmarks Commission has a city council rep observing
That's
our
right.
whatever, and I would think that rep, whoever it is, that rep would be the proper person to maybe want to at least sit in and advise us what, in their opinion or knowledge, the previous action of the council was. I did a lot of background checking on this, over the last few months. Found that there were no permits issued for any of the structures that were built in there. At least I couldn't find any, and I know Mr. Hamilton was checking on that for me because I provided him information. So, we never saw anything, including the transformer, other than a misrepresentation of where the transformer might be on the 2018 drawings. But we never saw it, its final placement. And the Paseo was originally constructed probably 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. And what review it might have had is hard to say. But I think a council member who does represent us, before the council and reports to the council on our actions would be wise to at least ask that person to sit in.
I agree.
Mr. Hamilton,
Mr. Chair.
hold on just 1 second, Commissioner Mann. To staff, was there a point that you all wanted to make or bring up, because you turned your cameras on, so I want to make sure we addressed it if need be.
Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Maurer turned on his camera before I did, so I don't know, Mr. Maurer, if you had something to add. I was just going to say that the HLC liaison for City Council is Councilwoman Sneddon, so staff can reach out to her and determine if she'd be available to assist.
Yeah, Mr. Hamilton and Chair, my only comment would be is that suggesting to have council members, in addition to their already assigned duties, participate in commissions and boards, is in the purview of the city administrator. So it sounds like if you're okay with council member Sneddon, who's already assigned to you, I think that is fine. If you want to go beyond that, I will need to take that to our interim city administrator, Ms. Bork, and have her present that to council. As you can imagine, their time is
Yeah,
very
absolutely. And there's- Okay, well, Commissioner Mahan, why don't you go ahead and then we can go with.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to tell you that that Councilman Sneddon is our liaison. That's what I was going to tell you.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we do this, and we can to move along this item as well. So why don't we ask that Councilmember Sneddon be asked to be part of this and to join Vice Chair House and Commissioner Drury and staff, and have this meeting and see where meetings and see where things can go from there. Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would probably be enough. That would give us both the history from the council side of things and also a connecting point to council for any discussion of this that needs to happen. So I think that would be a great way of keeping it lean and mean, but still keeping things moving but having the proper connections. And then also it would help with parking, coordination to parking if there needed to be. All right. So with that,
Mr. Chair,
yep.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mahan.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for an indefinite continuance.
To staff, Mr. Hamilton, is there? This is just a discussion item, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. There's no need for a motion on this. We'll simply note the two subcommittee members in the minutes and note that the discussion was held.
Okay, that makes it easy. Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, anything else before we close this item? Discussion? All right, thank you again, Vice Chair House and Commissioner Drury, and thank you, Councilwoman Sneddon, even though you don't know, we've already asked you to do something. So, okay.
She'll be thrilled. She'll be thrilled.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll close item 1, and now we're on to item 2. And we're running 10-15 minutes late, so we'll try to keep moving. So this is 1,000 steps. This is a continued item, project design approval and final approval. The property, historically called Camino El Mar, is a rare surviving example of this type of public works project in Santa Barbara from the pre-World War II period. As public architecture, it was intended to enhance its setting while providing public amenities, including access to the beach with a combination of arts and crafts and Mediterranean influences. The stairs are listed on the historic resources inventory. The property and project were previously evaluated in Phase 1 and Phase 2 historic structure sites reports. The proposed project is a repair to 1,000 steps, a public beach access stairway located at the end of Santa Cruz Boulevard. The project includes demolition and reconstruction of the lowest 24 steps, installation of 10 additional concrete steps extending approximately 14 feet seaward with decorative columns and a new landing apron installation of new stainless steel handrails for the street level to the beach, construction of a new concrete guardrail at the mid-level landing, installation of a drain to capture and redirect groundwater, repouring of the concrete at the mid-level landing, and repair of minor surface cracks where needed. Other improvements include new trash and recycle receptacles and new bicycle racks to the street level. The project received a recommendation from the Planning Commission to allow the project to proceed to the California Coastal Commission for a consolidated coastal development permit. The project received approval from the Coastal Commission on September 8th, 2021. And this is for project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. Historic resources findings are required as per major alterations. Project was last reviewed at HLC June 26, 2019. All right, so welcome. And do we have the, oh, perfect. We have the notes from the last, meeting. So we'll read through these in a minute, but welcome Mr. Van Molen. And if you would, to staff, is there any additional notes before we dive into the motion and then turn it over to the applicant for presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't have anything additional other than what is in the agenda already. So this project is here for both PDA and final at this hearing. And I will let the applicant take it from here after we've read the minutes. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, so the motion was to continue indefinitely to the Planning Commission with the following comments. 1, the Commission finds that compatibility analysis criteria generally have been met as follows. Project fully complies with all applicable city charter and municipal code requirements. Project design is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to its location within the city. B, the design of the project is compatible with desirable architectural qualities and characteristics that are distinct of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project. C, the size, mass, bulk, scale, bulk, height, and scale of the project are appropriate for its location and neighborhood, as this is a restoration of existing facility. D, the design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent landmarks or other nearby designated historic resources, as it is eligible for designation as a structure of merit. E, the design of the project responds appropriately to establish scenic public vistas. F, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping. Number 2, the Commission appreciates the efforts to restore the original feeling of the facility. 3, the Commission appreciates that while the pergola may not be restored at this point, there is a possibility to restore it in the future. The motion was by House, second was by Mahan. 602, Edmonds and Nemec abstained. Uli was absent. The motion carried. All right, so with that, welcome. We have our 15-minute timer, Mr. Van Molen. And if you could, try to stay to that. I know there's a lot of drawings, but if you could go through them, especially with the ones that we'll care about in mind, and then with development and any changes from the last set we saw 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. So as you mentioned, it's been over 2 years since we've been in front of this board. However, there has been almost no changes to the plans. And that is because we have had several milestones that have happened over those 2.5 years. One was going to Planning Commission and receiving approval. That was in November of 2020. And then again in September in 2021, we went to the Coastal Commission and received approval to move forward. So we have the ability to get this built, hopefully before summer starts, because the Coastal Commission has conditioned the project to allow us only to build during the months that are not considered the summer months, to make sure that access to the beach is not limited to the public. So we, the only change that we've made since the June 2019 plans, since you've seen them, is that we have chosen a paint color for the walls that are concrete. And that can be seen on page 19 of the project. You can see that there is the paint color. It's hard to see on a screen, but the goal of that color is to kind of blend with the poured-in-place concrete. So unfortunately, over time, because there's been so many different tags, graffiti, that the concrete that's existing has been painted. It's a kind of a yellow color now, and my goal would be to bring it back to more of a poured-in-place light gray, warm light gray. So when it is tagged, we can continue to paint it, but it has that feel. And if you could zoom out, feel of that poured-in-place concrete that it would have originally had. So that is the only change that we made to the project. If we could go to page 7. This is just kind of a reminder, if you haven't been to the steps lately, especially in winter when the sand starts to recede, there will be, like is shown in that bottom left-hand corner slide, almost a 3.5-foot drop to the sand. And you can see that there's also quite a bit of erosion or corrosion that's happened with the rebar that is the spalling. And all of that is part of our plan to repair this, repair the steps, put in a stainless steel handrail. If you could go to page 16. The same kind of stainless steel handrail that is also on the Mesa Lane steps. And let's see, what else? If we could go to page 13. So, and zoom in on that section at the bottom left-hand corner. This is how we're going to extend the stairs, and they'll go straight into the sand. And so as the sand fluctuates, as it does every year, there won't be this gigantic drop-off that happens that you saw in that photograph. So basically, the whole project is maintenance, repair. The extension of the stairs is what really took us the longest amount of time to get through to Coastal Commission, and but maintenance and repair, and also trying to divert some of the water. I'm sure if you've been down those stairs, you know that they're pretty slick because there's a constant flow of water that happens, and so we have some drainage basins that will help kind of divert the water away from the stairs, and then you'll also have the handrail. So, I mean, that is the basics of the project. I know that you have another project scheduled for 3:30, so I'd like to try to wrap things up and be as quick as possible and get you back on schedule. And I'd be happy to take any questions after public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So that completes your presentation. Let's go to public comment. So please click on the green arrow hand icon if you would like to make public comment. Raises your hand, and then you'll have 2 minutes to comment on this item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I only see one person attending online. So while we wait for any hands to raise, Ms. Tarnowska, did we receive any written correspondence regarding this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hamilton and Commissioners. We did receive one letter from Dennis Gow, which was distributed to the Commission before this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I don't see any hands raised on the webinar currently. So Mr. Chair and Commissioners, back to you.
Great, thank you. All right, to the Commission for any questions. Any questions on the side? I have one question. Oh, Commissioner Uli, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Your prompt was sound delayed.
Oh. No problem.
Question to Mr. Van Mullen. The concrete color that was talked about, and there's no need to go to it. Is that going to be an integral color to the concrete, or do you anticipate painting it that color?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Uli, because we are fighting the graffiti, that painting the concrete is the best way to do that. It's tagged on a regular basis. Plus, the concrete that is existing has previously been painted many times. So where we would like to do an integral color concrete, if we didn't think that was going to be painted over several times, our plan would be to just do a standard concrete and continue to paint it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, other questions? Commission? I had one question. So the detail for the base and the capital of the column. Do you have a detail for that? The columns. And are those, because you have drawings of them constructing them, right? So those are being either constructed or reconstructed?
Chair Grumbine, are you talking about the
round columns
at the bottom of the beach? Or are they talking about the columns that are at the mid landing?
Mid landing.
You see, so the mid landing columns are existing, and so they would just be repaired.
Okay, but they're not going to be replaced. Is that correct?
That's correct. If we could go to the that section drawing 13, page 13. Sorry. You could go to page 13.
Sometimes there's a delay.
This is page 13 here. Is there another page?
I'm sorry, page 19. My apologies. So the columns are existing, and then the darker part, which is that railing, that would be new. And so that'll be poured in place. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I thought I saw an engineered drawing, but
that probably is the columns that are at the very bottom of the stairs. So at the very bottom of the stairs are some shorter columns, almost like a newel post, and those will be rebuilt.
Okay, and sorry, I'm trying.
If you go to photos, page 7, you in the lower left-hand corner, those are columns that will be rebuilt, or newel posts.
Gotcha. Okay. See. Okay, can you go to your, so just so I'm clear about it, because it was find the detail that I was, or the column that I was looking at. Sorry, I'm flipping through your drawings off screen. I'm just trying to find if I can find the one that jumped out at me. Oh. Okay, well, I'm not finding what I was thinking of it, but so the profiles for the current columns, the current round columns, on the historic drawings in the historic structures report, they show certain profiles for both the base and the capitals, which look like that they got built that way, or fairly close. And so when you, like those that are deteriorated, or those portions that are deteriorated, are you reconstructing that, or are you just kind of patching whatever the cracks are that are there?
So, Chair Grumbine, on the lower portion, the columns that are in the photo, those will be completely replaced. And then on the columns that are up at the middle landing, those will be repaired. The spalling will be repaired.
Okay, but you're not going to try to rebuild some of the stuff that's being fallen, that's sort of worn or crumbling off the base or the capitals. Is that right?
No, we would do we're restoring those columns. So if they're spalling, we're going to go and take a look at the rebar, see if it still is thick enough. We'll take off the rust, we'll spray it down. We have a whole procedure, and then we'll replace the concrete.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had on my questions. Any other questions? To comment? All right, Commissioner Uli?
Could we go to that photograph that that staff was talking about? I think you said it was page 7, had the existing columns on so that we could just see a visual of what you're describing.
Those columns would need to be completely rebuilt. This is obviously
Mr. Hamilton or Mr. Bolton, who's driving this thing? Can we go to the photographs?
there are other photographs on page 15.
I guess nobody's driving the bus.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I think we're having a hard time understanding what specifically you're referring to. There are decorative columns that are called out on several sheets.
And so if you zoom out of this page, there are some photographs of those existing columns that we've been talking about that we want to see.
Try page 21.
Yeah, 21 looks like it has.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I between the historic structures report and then the set, I think I've, yeah, there's the, you can see the base of it in detail 9. In the photo 9, you can see the base of the round column at the landing. You can just, if you zoom into the upper left there, you can see that round shaft coming down. You can see the very worn, it's almost like it's been sort of putty, like plastered or tried to be repaired or something. And the original profile and the columns and the historic structures report has some more detailed older photos that show it in better, but it shows the profiles and there's a couple of steps in it. There's a quarter round and there's two flats, but in the historic structures report, I can give you the page number. There's a historic drawing showing both the profiles of the base and capital. But if there was going to be work, I would want to mimic those. But I don't know if it's just been mucked up with so much over the years that now it's just a blob of patch at the bottom, at the base of the shaft of the column. And that's going into a comment more, but that's where I was trying to find all the drawings that have been both shown of these columns. But I think that can get worked into a comment, so it's no big deal. I think we can reference the historic structures report for reference. We will anyways eventually, but it's on page, I think page 10 of the PDF, of the 47-page PDF in the historic structures report. But if that could be queued up for comment time, I think that'll be easy enough to work into a comment. Oh yeah, there we go. So if you zoom in at the top left there, they give or she gives the capital and base. And if you could see in the base, the multi-steps, even though it's actually an all-round base, it multi-steps up to a quarter round and then to a little fillet. And then on the capital, it just has a pillowed kindness portion. So anyways, that's going to be for reference and comments. And if we don't have any more questions, we can roll right into comments with that. In terms of the reference for the capitals and bases, if they are reconstructed or need to be reconstructed. All right, other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Howe.
I empathize with Commissioner Uli and would also much prefer natural concrete to age naturally, but I also recognize the reality of the graffiti and wouldn't want to see it end up like the crazy quilt of colors on the freeway medians that Caltrans applies. So I think that's a practical solution to paint it a concrete color. Sedate, I think, was the name of the color, which is very appropriate. Yeah. So I support that and the project in general.
And also in your comments, if you could comment on whether you think it's, because it's for, before us for project design approval and final approval. If you feel comfortable with those, either or both of those, if you want.
Well, I would be happy to make the motion for a PDA and final approval today.
I'll second that.
Well, before we go into that, let's see if there's any other comments, and then just to make sure before we jump the gun here. Okay, yeah, just if you would comment on your comfortability with that as well, if you feel different from other commissioners.
Yep.
All right. Other comments on this, or does everyone generally agree with Vice Chair House? Yeah, Commissioner Uli.
Mr. Chair, I'm supportive of the motion project and want to echo your comments about we finally got the graphic on the columns that they're missing the subtlety of that detail. So to the degree that the subtlety can be returned in their rehabilitation, I think would be good.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Uli. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
All right, Commissioner Drury.
Yes, that did escape me. I would agree with Commissioner Uli. I think those little filigrees are really important to the look of the project from the beginning to the present day. I would like to see those restored. Otherwise, I'm in favor of the project.
All right. All right. Any other comments? All right, go for it, Vice Chair House.
Okay, well, now I'm officially making or remaking my motion for project design approval and final approval. And findings for major alterations to a historic resource structure would include the alterations are being made to restore the historic resource to its original appearance and to aid in its preservation or enhancement as a historic resource. And the exterior alterations are consistent with the Secretary of the Interior's standards.
I'll second. Oh, there's more.
Don't worry, it's still going.
More. Okay, so these are the project compatibility findings. The project is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of the project. Is compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood, largely because it is an existing feature and being renovated. The appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. Once again, it's an existing structure, so it's consistent with that. Page 2, please. And I don't know that it's relevant, its sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and resources, because I don't know that there are any adjacent to this. It does not affect public views of the ocean and mountains. And it is appropriate use of open space and landscaping.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, there's another one here.
Oh, good Lord.
So,
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
I think you made all of the required findings. It just needed project compatibility and historic resource findings.
I think that was quite enough. Thank you.
Yep, exactly. All right, and Commissioner Drury, you second all that, right?
I did indeed.
Okay, so under discussion, and would the maker of the motion and the seconder agree with adding or incorporating the comments made by Commissioner Uli about including the degree possible or the degree that things are affected, including of the details of the capital and base of the landing, of the historic landing from using the historic drawings from the historic structures report.
Absolutely, and it was eloquently expressed, so suitable for inclusion in the minutes.
All right. And the seconder?
Yes.
Agree with that?
I do.
All right. All right. Any other discussion? All right. In that case, let's have a roll call vote.
All right. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Edmonds,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayhem,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
and Chair Grumby.
Aye.
All
And
right,
Mr.
motion-
Chair. Okay.
So yes, Vice Chair House? Yep.
A thank you to the applicant for his concern about keeping us on time.
Yes.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
and also thank you for bringing a great project before us. And this is appealable to City Council within 10 days. And I one last little suggestion: if you start at the top of the stairs and work your way down, they'll let you finish even if you go into the summer, because otherwise no one can get to the beach.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we will close this item and we'll go on to item 3. This is 801 State Street. This is an in-progress review of the
Chair.
Las Tiendas. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Manuel.
Sorry, I need to recuse myself. Conflict of interest with the applicant.
Right. Thank you. So we are, and sorry, let me just do a quick time check as well. So we have one more item after this. So, yeah, we're on time now. And then we'll have one more item after this. So, all right. So let's continue on here. So we are, Las Tiendas building is constructed in 1925 in the Spanish Colonial Revival style by A.C. Sanders. Is designated structure of merit. The property and project were previously evaluated in a Phase 2 historic structure sites report and a letter addendum. Proposal to renovate the existing 7,000 square foot 2-story commercial building to a new 14-room hotel with food and beverage service. The project includes 2,700 square foot 3rd-story addition with a roof deck and an elevator shaft and the expansion of the existing basement. Development plan approval findings were made April 15, 2020 for the construction of a 2,900 net square foot new commercial floor area. An in-progress review is requested for revisions to the roof deck. No final appealable action will be taken this hearing. Project design approval was granted April 15, 2020, and the project was last reviewed April 14, 2021. All right. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself for the record, and Mr. Hamilton, and then we'll go to the summary of the from the motion from last time. Mr. Hamilton, did you have any additional notes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to note for members of the public attending that this is not an appealable action here. This is just an in-progress review. And I did want to note that previous communication with the applicant, they were requesting final on consent. So please consider that in your motion today. Thanks very much. I'll let Mr. Cornell take it from here.
Thank you. All right, welcome, Mr. Cornell. And I'll go through the meeting minutes, and then you'll have 15 minutes, but you don't have to use them all to go through this project. All right. So this was, there was a straw vote. How many commissioners can support no mullions as drawn? It's 4-2 passed. The straw vote was of how many commissioners can support no arches on State Street? 5-1 passed. So then the motion was continue indefinitely with the following comments. The section showing the south elevation at the 3rd floor should be set back per the original design. The majority of the commission is in favor of keeping the finial instead of the flag. 3, the commission supports no mullions as drawn. 4, drop the height of the trellis on the roof deck to have the underside of the main beam be 8 feet. 5, the State Street elevation without arches is acceptable as proposed. 6, the bathroom on the 3rd floor is acceptable as proposed. 7, show the wrought iron balconies on the 3rd story past the belly band on the plans. 8, adjust the number 7 parapet cap details. The motion was by Mahan, the second was by House, it was 6-0-0. Manuel, Edmonds, and Drury were absent. The motion carried. All right. So welcome. If you want to make sure to review all the pieces that you're here for in-progress review, and then also note of anything else that's changed since last time we taught, or additional new details that you would like us to review.
Okay, why don't we go through these? Why don't we start with A202, which is where we left off in the last review. We've included in this set the elevations you reviewed on the 14th. So that's what this elevation is. One of the things you asked us to do was to lower the height of the trellis, which is item number 4. If we go to, and then you also ask us to keep the finial instead of a flag. If you recall, at that time, we had proposed the option of a flag, which was rejected. So let's go to the next sheet, which is actually, not to confuse you, it's A201. So we can zoom in on that trellis a little bit, and you can see that we've reduced that to 8 feet. To the underside of that structure. And on this elevation, there really isn't much change to speak of. If we'll back it out again, you can see the step in the 3rd floor from that banding, which we have detailed. And if we jump to sheet 306, this was where we didn't have the adequate detail right here. So if we can zoom in on that section to the left, I think that'll give everyone a clear understanding of how the step back is happening. You note it's a little hard to see the detail that's up there. I think it's detail 8-504. So why don't we jump to that sheet? Because this is related to, this is of course dealing with item number 1, the section showing the step back. But specifically the comment that was made about the wrought iron balconies on the 3rd story past the belly band. So this is what our detail shows now. And the good news is we're going to be able to form that belly band out of concrete as we're showing across the entire length of the building as the section showed. At this point, we are showing that tile flush, and we have, since this was submitted for your review, we actually think that that tile edge should just go slightly beyond. It should be proud of that cornice detail, but we don't think it should go very far past it just because of the nature of that. If we go back to 306, page 306, where we had that section, and if we look at the blow up of the elevation there that's on the right, you can see, blow it up just a little bit more at the 3rd level, please. So you can see how that tile would express itself relative to the top of that band that we were just looking at. So we think that that being just slightly proud and seeing that little edge of tile is the appropriate approach to that. So we'll see what you think about that. If we go back to sheet A201, again, this shows the finial. It also, yeah, let's go to 2. There you go. You had it right there. Now, one sheet more, one sheet, next sheet. Yeah, there you go. You can also see that we don't have the mullions that are on that 3rd level as the commission requested. And then if we go to the next sheet in the set, so this is what you looked at previously, and so besides the trellis dropping, there isn't a lot of change here. So the next sheet would be 202. So this is what you're looking at today. There's no change here. The one thing I will point out is you see the little chimney that's coming up off of that stair tower element that is on the roof right there. So that was added. And it's just a little expression that you can also see if we go back 2 sheets to A201 from that De La Guerra side. Sorry that I'm bouncing you around like this, but you can see that little chimney element there. So that was added thanks to our mechanical engineer as a ventilation shaft. That detail that you see there, which looks a little bit funny in this drawing, but that is actually a replication of the eaves that exist. If we go to sheet A601, which I think is the third to the last sheet in the set, there we go on the upper right corner. Maybe actually include, if you'll scroll over so we can see the photo that's to the left there. There you go. So this obviously has to be, we have to take a template of this and do this precisely, but that's approximately what that little rafter tail looks like. So that's what we're using consistently throughout. And there was a desire number 8 in your minutes. I think this is the last item, was to adjust the number 7 parapet cap detail. I think that detail is now on sheet 504. Oh, 601. Thank you, Rahileo. Yeah, so 601 detail number 7 at the bottom is that is the cornice, and we basically, this is the profile of what is existing on the building today. So that's what we're using as that condition. I should note that the detail right above this is incorrect, and we'll fix this for final. You can see that the line of the structure is consistent, and so this would be that cornice at that belly, or what we'll call the banding at the second floor. So where the note says 7/8 inch 3-coat cement plaster, that obviously has to move back because that's where that plane difference occurs in the building. And as long as we're on this sheet, and I'll conclude with this and open it up to questions, is the trellis up on the roof. So we've just done a simplified section of, somewhat emulating that little corbel or that cornice detail with the beam ends for that trellis up on the roof. And we basically have the 3 layers of trellage up there. So I think that addresses all of the items in the minutes, and I'll leave it there for questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, so why don't we go to public comment now? Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item can please click on the green arrow hand icon. Raise your hand, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. If you are attending by webinar and wish to give oral public comment, please follow the instructions on screen. Ms. Ternowska, did we receive any written correspondence?
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, and Commissioners, we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We only have 1 attendee by webinar, and I don't see any hands raised. So, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, back to you.
All right, to the commission for questions. All right, Commissioner Uli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the applicant, for both the, let's see, this sheet is sufficient. For the cornice and belly band, I suppose that's what we're calling it. The top of that detail has a slight slope to it.
Yes. And I'm not sure why it isn't showing up there, but it does show on that section that we were looking at. So yes, it does have a slight slope.
And then the amount of projection of the balcony tile past the flashing, what were your thoughts there?
You know, my thought is that it's only probably something like a half inch or, 3/4 at the most, whatever would be the, and the tile. And we're showing, that's again, where's that? Yeah, there we go. We're showing that that's kind of a squared edge, but that could also be, we could find a bullnose edge to that tile. So it basically had that kind of a protrusion. So, I'm thinking that at the most it's an inch.
Okay, other questions? I have a question, and this might be tied to a staff question. So if this was a request for final on consent, why isn't it going to final on consent?
Mr. Chair, the applicant requested an in-progress review prior to final approval, and then also suggested that they would like to go for final on consent after this progress review.
I see. Okay.
Receiving, comments on these changes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's up to you all. We do want to be continued to the next meeting if that's possible. So if we can get on consent, if you feel comfortable, that would be great.
Okay.
But
I didn't understand. I thought it was that I was confused with the comment. I thought it was you had asked to go on final consent or go to consent for final. But anyways, okay. So that's clear now. Commissioner Lenvick, question? You're muted, Commissioner Lenvick.
There. Is there a wall on the property line where the trellis abuts the property line? Is there a wall there? I mean, don't you have to have a wall that's so many inches above the top of the structure on a property line?
Rogelio, I don't think you're on to the, I've got Rogelio here. In fact, we could go to sheet A203. And that shows that condition at the property line.
It shows a wood column, I guess, and the beam and the whatever the.
Please zoom in where this is being discussed. Can you call
probably the best thing would be the middle, number 4 down at the bottom would be the best thing to zoom in on. And Mr. Lenvick, you've got that's a very good point, because this is the property line at that parapet condition.
Yeah, I don't care if it's there or not. I don't see it, and I just thought maybe it was required.
Well, it's a very good point, and I'm going to have to verify what we might need to do there with that parapet structure at that property line.
Yeah.
We obviously have the 42-inch high parapet there, but that parapet does extend beyond that.
The other question,
trellis.
The other question on 202 is the trellis, bottom of the trellis beam is still dimensioned there at 9 foot, although you've got it 8 foot elsewhere. So
on which sheet? Do we show it as? Yeah, it should be 8 feet in the new drawings. It shows 9 feet on those previous drawings. Yeah, this doesn't show a dimension. Maybe back, I think if we go back to that sheet 203, and the upper drawing, yeah. So that shows that 8-foot trellis. But thank you for that comment on the property line, because that is critical. Got to work that out.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Uli.
While we're on this drawing, this might just be a graphics issue. The beam end on the left seems to be different than the one on the right. So just must be a graphics issue.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
He's trying to sneak it by us.
Yeah.
He won't do it.
I think we were maybe studying options there. I don't know.
Well, I get the fact that Spanish Andalusian tends to be quirky at times, so I didn't know if this was intentional or.
This would be a first, though, of all the all the asymmetries. All right. Any other questions? Right. Okay. Well, in that case, let's go to comments.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Yes, I was in favor of this project from the beginning. I did not review and did not attend the meeting when this was brought to. So I'm gonna abstain on comments.
Great, thank you. All right. Other comments? Who wants to kick us off with comments? Commissioner Uli.
I'm supportive of the project. I think it's made terrific progress. Support final on consent if that's the will of the commission.
Is that a motion?
I wasn't ready to make a motion, but if there's nobody else doing anything, then I suppose that could be a motion.
I'll second it.
I could second it.
Commissioner Mann already beat you to it, Vice Chair House. He seconded it. All right, so we got a motion by Commissioner Uli and a second by Commissioner Mahan. Considering there wasn't anyone else volunteering for comments, we'll go into that. We'll go with that. Under discussion, would the maker of the motion and the seconder be okay with adding? Well, we probably want to add a few points that were raised, just in terms of studying and figuring out the parapet at the property line, and that condition, and then also making sure that all of the trellises, the drawings of the trellises are adjusted to have the bottom of the trellis at 8 feet. Some of them are, but some of them appear not to be. And then that the beam ends on sheet A203 of the trellis be symmetrical and match. And then with the comment of the tile at the band, at the belly band, protruding by ½ inch to 1 inch, which was indicated that it would be, but not shown in the drawings. Those were the comments that have been said, and any other ones that you want to add to that.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
I would add that for detail 7 on, I think it's A601, that the top of the parapet cap be sloped back away from the exterior face of the wall.
Okay.
Yeah, the slope should be indicated, not just suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is on detail 9, but not here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other?
I'm comfortable with those comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And Commissioner Mahan, are you?
Oh, no, that's right.
Okay.
I wasn't seconder. I lost that one.
You're the and is the thirder okay with those comments as well?
Second.
All right. Okay. So with those comments, additional changes or additions to the motion, with that, any other discussion? before we go to a roll call vote? All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Edmond,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
and Chair Grunbein.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, and very nice project. And yeah, I guess it's not an appealable action because it's going to final on consent. All right. So in that case, we we're ahead of schedule, right?
Sure.
And so why don't we also take a let's see, a 7-minute recess to go start at try to start at 3:05. We'll see if we can make it. But let's just do a little recess. We'll be back. All right.
I believe so. Looks like everybody's still on the webinar.
All right. In that case, calling back to order, Historic Landmarks Commission, October 13th, 2021. And we are on for our final item of the day. Item 4, 215 East Victoria Street. This is for final approval. This is a 13,000 square foot lot. It's currently developed with a 3-unit building fronting Victoria Street and 2-story buildings towards the rear of the lot. Proposal to demolish the existing 1,000 square foot garage, the existing 2-story building, 3-bedroom unit, existing 2-story building, 2-bedroom unit, and 45 square foot shed in order to construct 2 new 2-story apartment buildings. The 3 existing units in the front building are proposed to remain. The 8-unit project will be developed under the average unit size density incentive program. The residential unit mix will include 4 1-bedroom units and 4 2-bedroom units with an average unit size of 969 square feet. Minor improvements are proposed to the front building, including removal of an existing stair from the side yard and reconfiguring the stair located at the front yard. The existing driveway and parking areas will remain with new paving and new landscaping throughout the site. And final approval is requested. Project requires substantial conformance to the plans. Granted project design approval on September 1st, 2021, which is when the project was last reviewed. And so with that, we will go through, unless Mr. Hamilton has any additional notes, we'll go through the last motion and the notes, and then we'll hand it over to you for a presentation. So welcome. Mr. Hamilton, any notes on the project before we proceed?
Mr. Chair, no notes from me other than what was mentioned on the agenda. Staff did review the plans for compliance with stormwater management and the final approval checklist. So we think it meets those requirements and is eligible to receive final approval. That's it for me, and looks like there are some comments to read through, then the applicant can take it away.
All right, great, thank you. So with that, we had written correspondence from Nancy Law was acknowledged, and then we had a motion for project design approval with the following comments. 1, use vertical planks at the doors and the fences. 2, make the proposed permeable pavers more traditional EPV style in terms of size and shape. 3, the trash enclosure and bike enclosure shall be screened with traditional screening and hide the center divider between the 2 enclosures. 4, the wheat screed at the base of the building is to be filled in in a traditional manner at the wall below the wheat screed and in a manner that continues the wall down. Number 5, the landscape design is acceptable. 6, the south elevation windows W208 and W207 shall be in a 2x8 wall for additional shadow reveal. 7, consider awnings on the south elevation to make the elevation livelier. 8, the commission finds the project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met. And then we went through the project compatibility analysis. And the action was by House, second by Uli, 800. Jury abstained, and the motion carried. All right. So with that, welcome. If you could introduce yourself, and then go through the project. You'll have 15 minutes. You don't have to use it all if you don't want to. And please make sure to include in your, as you walk us through, addressing all the comments that we had and any other new things that we haven't seen.
Great, absolutely. Thanks, commissioners. My name's Ken Vermillion, representing Dilson Architecture and Planning. And I'll get started with project design approved comments and list, and we can fill the pages as we go and show where they're addressed in the drawing set. Number 1, vertical wood planks, doors, and fences. And so I'll call your attention to page 8. First up, to show the trash and bike room enclosure area with an updated finish.
Mr. Vermillion, I'm sorry for the interruption, but we're having a little trouble hearing you. I suggest turning off your webcam so that the audio can have a little bit more width. I don't think we heard the page numbers that you referred to.
Sorry, yeah. Let's go to A202, and that'll address the garage or the carport trash room elevation, the driveway. And you'll see we replaced the graphics there. So the two wood fences will have a vertical finish. The fence will be aligned with the top of it all the way across the opening. It will also have the vertical planks. And we can look at the type of this, it's a Western cedar is planned for that. The kind of follow-up comment was the vision of the wall beyond, and this is a cleaned version. So you do one single line there. That's because there is a jog in that back wall. So the bathroom goes back further than the restroom. And that's really what you're gonna see is a single line. Same finish out that whole interior area. So we wanna run the fence all the way up there. We felt it looked unbalanced. So we went with this. As for the fences, let's go to landscape G2, please. And that's what in the fence detail. That's Greg Mendonce's detail and addresses a couple of fence areas. The front yard fences will be per the detail 4, a much more picket type. We see that a lot in this neighborhood and wanted to maintain that look, especially with that front building existing. And if we just pay down a bit there, you'll see other fencing that will be used throughout the state on property lines. And so with a tap design and vertical planks with small gaps. And so we appreciate those comments. The pavers. You have access to the uploaded paver spec? You do, correct? Perfect. Okay, so the Ackerstone paving line that we chose was the ACU1, I believe it's called. To the next page of this, there's the general look of a large crosshatch. We're going with the grind finish here. And as you can see, they're all basically a 4x8 format paver. So much more in your tradition of the law, more modern looking plank pavers that we had specified before. And then go to the last sheet, we'll see color, which would be the sandalwood, is the lower left. And so that would address number 2. And we just talked about kind of number 3, the center divider, that we mispresented what was happening behind there. So I think that clarification, addressed that. Surface gates and fences are vertical plank, of course, we saw. For number 4, leaf screen detail, absolutely, we love that detail. We do project. So if we go to A501, we use a product called Cleep. It would be detail 1 in the low right corner on 501. Essentially one of those continuous weep splashing was talked about, where it's got the weep that would meet your 2-foot clears, and then that can down, the flashing can at the bottom, and it'll apply go to the face. So excellent. 5 landscape design is acceptable. Thank you. We think so too. Number 6, the south elevation. So let's go back to sheet A202. I'll show you what we did there. We did a couple of things. We opted to avoid maintenance and cost of additional components like awnings. We feel like this is not a true south exposure. This is a southeast exposure too. So what we did was we went ahead and did a build out of the framing, an extra 6 inches of framing out of the existing wall, and we're having this bottom similarly as we do at the ends of the gabled roof components. And essentially what we do is hang the windows with a deeper detail. And we're gonna put some vertical wood, Western red cedar siding in between those windows to just accentuate that simple opening there. The other thing you'll notice we did is we did a slight reveal in the stucco finish to the right at the balcony there that's showing door D25. So what we did there is we opted for, essentially got 2x6 exterior walls. We opted for a 2x4 depth guard wall and do a simple recessed plaster finish, add a little bit more, just a shadow line to those balconies. And that happens other places. A couple other places around the different buildings, but those are the solutions that we thought addressed the comments and did them in a way that makes it a little more interesting, especially to look up the driveway from the street view. That's pretty much it in this case. So obviously got the finish material and got an image, got the full board. We don't have the camera on, but an image of that, Ted, that we can call up. There you go. And so our red clay 2-piece tile will be the Palmia blend. Just than the more standard terracotta blend. They're almost not, you almost can't tell the difference, but we just, for the slight different reddish hue rather than the more slightly orange hue. Body itself will be a paint. A Dunn Edwards faded gray is the color that we've out. It's a difference between the white paper. It's definitely got a little bit of muted tone. Number 3 is the exterior aluminum cladding for the windows and doors. And that's kind of per things from way back, always was planned to be a light green color. I admit it looks a tiny bit darker than it actually is, but like it matches well with the dark wood accents. Then to the right, you'll see the Western red. In this case, it's got a transparent on it, and we definitely do want to go with a little bit of the dark finish there. We feel like that's a little more traditional and will go a little bit better with the copper downspouts once they age out over time. And then down the bottom row, we've got the bonderized sheet metal number 5. That's where we use sheet metal we're going to use when you see it. So that'll be the parapet caps that are only visible top surface of the parapets, but all other visible sheet metal will be copper. And then we highlighted this image of El Carrillo, the building on Carrillo Street here near our office, all found in the EP guideline manual, page 29. And exactly the kind of look doing a simple raked finish on the stucco on one side, and just no exposed, just a clean half round gutter with downs in the copper metal. And then the last thing on there is number 7. That's the Pacific Polymer deck coating, and that's just a simple, pretty, just a warm gray finish for all the deck surface, for all the exterior decks. And I think that pretty much does it to us. At this point, we'll turn to the board for questions.
All right, thank you. Well, that does it for your presentation. We'll go to public comment now, and then we'll go back to the board after. Anyone wishing to comment from the public, please click on the green arrow hand icon, and you'll get 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are currently no attendees by webinar, and I'll just confirm with Ms. Ternovskaya if we received any written correspondence.
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And to the applicant, I just would like to confirm that Greg Mendonça is part of the applicant team. He was in the attendees list, but I promoted him to a panelist. So I don't know if you wish to speak at all, but he is a panelist if that is the case. Mr. Vermillion.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you see him here?
Yes, he is a panelist, so he should be able to share his camera and microphone if needed.
Okay, I'm not sure if he's.
I'm here just in case there's any questions on the landscape that need to be answered.
Great, great.
Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Seeing no additional attendees or hands raised, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, back to you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll come back to the commission for questions. You want to start off with questions? Questions? Going once, going twice. All right. In that case, if there's no questions, oh, actually, I have a question because we can't let this go without a question, without anyone, even a single question. On the, if you zoom into this sheet, the left corner of the building 2 north elevation. So, or actually, sorry, building 3 north elevation. And it might end up being the same thing, but that bottom left corner, the swoop out, the wall step spurred out and stepping out. Do you have a detail of that swoop?
Let me see real quick. 5.
And I'm just making sure I'm tracking it right. That's the one that you said you furred it out to turn it to a 2x8 wall or something, right?
Yeah, we added a 2x6 wall to the outside.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we've got the reveal A50, and we've got the reveal for the balcony and inset guardrail there, numbers 18. And I don't see that. Actually, but I'll confirm the view. Yeah, okay. It's a 2x exterior wall, additional 6 fur out. So that's scattered within 6 inches plus or minus.
Okay. And let's see, that was it for me. Okay, so is there any other questions from anyone? All right, in that case, why don't we roll into comments? Anyone want to start off?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Sure, Vice Chair House.
On this sheet, building 2 south elevation, could you run through your explanation again for why there was maybe no change or little change to that lower right corner, the door 103, and why that, I forget exactly what our comments were, but either some kind of grill work above there or taking the siding all the way up. I think it was horizontal before, so that's a change, but what's your rationale for stopping it where you do?
We looked at grills, and the grill that we kind of found be maybe appropriate were more crosshatch type wheels, and friends like the look of it. Any additional material up there, also the fact that it would, do something to limit the amount of fresh air that could be exchanged within the trash area. And we opted honestly that we thought the clean vertical planks and having that slight bit open was better. And I thought my interpretation was that we kind of showed it as there was a wall coming all the way out to the very back of the fence. And that's really not the case. That single line is, a good amount, because that is the depth of the trash room on the left side.
I understood that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go into comments. Commissioner Lenvik?
You're
You're
muted.
muted. I think you're still muted, Commissioner Lenvik.
He's working it.
Okay. Other questions? All right. In that case, let's go into comments. Any comments? So this is before us for final approval. Right. So discussions of how things were solved, whether you're happy with it, where they are, from our comments from last time, and any other new additional comments, and whether you're thinking that it's ready for final approval. Commissioner Edmonds.
I think that this was the first project that I reviewed when I came on the commission, and I went out and walked the property. And so I just want to say it's really come a long way. I think it looks great, and I'm ready for final approval.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely has. It's definitely looking very good. One comment I would throw in there, and I think it's ready for final approval too. There may be a few last little tweaks, and might be able to even just comment on them or get that to be worked into the motion if people are feeling that way. Can we go to the elevations with that showed the, let's see, what the I don't know which building it is, but it's the one. Can we go to the other elevations? Oh, actually, it's this one right here. Sorry. Zoom into detail one, or not detail one, but one, building 2 south elevation. So the vertical wood siding between the windows, I think the pushing out of the masking, I think that works, and I think it makes the elevation interesting and adds some interest that I think we were trying with the awnings. But I understand the not wanting a long-term maintenance thing, and this building's also way towards the back of the block, or middle of the block, so it's not such a big important public thing in terms of adding interest to the street frontage. But the wood siding, it seems very much out of character for the style of architecture. So I would say maybe going with just plaster in between. It's the pop out that you did was interesting enough in my mind that you added interest to that elevation, and so I don't even think you need the wood siding. I don't think if you're going to do wood, it needs to be more of a Spanish way of using it within or around windows. Which the vertical siding makes sense for the fencing and for gates, but in this case, you'd probably want more of a frame or something else. And I don't think that's where you really want to go with it. So I would be supportive of it if it was just plaster instead, and just all on the same wall plane. So I don't know what others think, but that would be one of my few comments of things that need to be changed.
Mr. Chair?
Aside from, yeah, Commissioner Lenvik.
Yeah, I was locked up here. I apologize before, but I've unlocked myself.
All right.
That question that you just asked was what I was curious about. Elsewheres on your exterior elevations, for instance, A201, you've got second floor windows that are kind of side by side, but you haven't chosen to put wood between those windows. And so I was wondering why one area works for you and the other, and another area doesn't require it. And I think you more or less have hit on the same thing, Mr. Chair, that it's probably not necessary to put wood in between a pair of windows, at least unless you're going to do it throughout the whole project, you know. Thank you.
And so to the applicant, then we'll turn that into a question.
Yes.
So would you like to comment or respond or thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are fine comments, and we appreciate them. If we go back and zoom in on that, the one thing that came to mind with us there is once we picked out that amount of the facade, which felt was landing okay with to the arches and everything, the two unequal openings with the one being smaller and off center didn't really come to I guess a good resolution in our to group them and have one single rectangular opening and then just have that portion read as if it were the existing. And honestly, your comments are well taken about that being a plaster versus a wood plan finish. I think it could go either way, but I do like the idea of making it one opening. But we would be for the commission's input if there's further.
I think that, Mr. Chair, I think that our comment on the prior review regarding awnings was that awnings would shade, but they also would provide color, which is one of the things that the exterior elevations are lacking, is any color or interest in them. And I don't think that this as a solution to providing interest or color works. And I certainly do think that awnings, and they don't necessarily have to be canvas awnings, but awnings would give you the opportunity to provide color. And awful lot of buildings in Santa Barbara have awnings that really do something for the appearance of the building. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually along those lines, because obviously the applicant's here for finals, they're trying to get it across the finish line here. One thing that might do that might add the color aspect. I think the popping out of the wall adds the interest, and so in my mind that was and I would be still supportive enough of that as a move to add the interest and to solve it. Another way along your color thing is could be shutters. You could do shutters on these windows, and that could add the splash of color if the applicant's worried about long-term canvas or other things. I think the canvas idea would also work in terms of the color. So and the shutter idea, you got to make sure that they would visually actually close on this opening, and so they have to be decent enough size, or shown in some way like a bifold that would actually unfold and cover that opening. But that might be another solution for getting a shutter that gives color and interest and isn't a fabric that wears quickly or whatever. But that could be another way of, and that would probably be strongly asymmetrical enough that it actually could work without being just subtly asymmetrical in terms of your composition issue that you were wanting to address, which also makes sense. But any other commissioners' thoughts on this, or any other pieces, Vice Chair House?
Well, I think the whole project is great, but this is the only elevation that is really troubling to me. And the intention of the awning suggestion was both a pop of color as well as some shadow texture. And I'm willing to buy into this pop out as adding some interest to the elevation, but I don't buy into the wood siding for the same reasons that you cited. It just doesn't seem like an appropriate use of material there. So I would be fine if that was plaster between the windows, as long as that plaster was in the same plane as the rest of the wall and each window was its own recess. Because otherwise it just makes it a wide horizontal opening, which seems like the wrong kind of proportion for the style of architecture. And also it seems to me that the right end of that pop out hangs further beyond the garage door opening than it does on the left side, and enough so that it kind of jumps out at me that it's not symmetrical. So if it doesn't pose a problem as far as your interior, I would pull that right edge back in some, or at least look at it. And, you know, I just really feel like the, I guess that's the trash and recycling to the right of the garage opening. That just hasn't been resolved, and it just looks like there were two garages and then somebody repurposed one of them and put a fence there. And it just, you know, I understand your need for ventilation to get airflow through there, but there must be some other way. And, you know, it would be a clean appearance if the vertical wood siding just went all the way up. So it almost read as a garage door, maybe with some personnel doors in it. But I'm just not really comfortable with saying that fits with this building. Otherwise, the rest of the building, I think, is ready for final approval. And these little things could come back on consent.
Well, if it's final approval, they won't come back on consent.
No,
So-
I know. So a continuance to consent for these details.
Gotcha.
If I may, for 1 minute or two.
Sure. We'll open it back up to you.
So definitely we were looking at the color issue too. Now keep in mind the window green. Okay, so we're not seeing the green windows. The shadow depth of the garage, whatever that is. So the vertical siding was both an element to join that singular recess rather than having two odd size recesses, but also to introduce a different tone with that. So we're amenable to the plaster option, and we're amenable to slightly making it on the one side of the smaller window to fall exactly dead center of the two below. And you get into why didn't we group other windows or put between other windows, then you're talking about a more expansive look at this. And the other thing we didn't want to do is put two awnings here, whether they be canvas or not, and address awnings that are more, that would be more beneficial to solar within the courtyard. So then it became, well, then we're going to want to do another 6 to 8 to 10 openings, and that was where cost. We've already been looking at cost in-depth contract already, and you know, I'm sure you can appreciate how crazy everything now. So really, we just thought trying to be economical and provide a little bit of this driveway. And we did think about just raising the fencing up and letting the gates be shorter, but that definitely didn't look as good as the, you know, all solid 7 foot across. But again, we're open to comments. We just are sensitive to costs at the.
Yeah, I hear you. And as we're trying to find the next step forward here, just as an additional note to that, the vertical wood siding, creating that horizontal strip window is part of the language issue and what Vice Chair House was saying in terms of sort of the right geometry or the right proportions for this style of architecture. And so part of the problem is it's creating a very horizontal window or opening of some sort, and it looks like it was infilled later with this wood siding. But then your eye wants to say, well, why is it this big long window? Because that's not normal in Spanish architecture unless you have a clear story or something else going across it. But then you still have solids in between. So I think that's part of the problem is even just going with plaster as that inset is you're turning it into a big strip of window. that plane needs to come out, and then so that it's having a more vertical or just less extreme horizontal in terms of the overall opening.
Okay.
So, but I think the other issue that still needs to be addressed is the venting. It sounds like, at least from Vice Chair House, others might not feel. I don't feel like it is absolutely needed in terms of another solution. Although I think it could be that you carry some of that up and you cut out patterns or something else, that you find a way of getting some venting to come through in the upper level. But I could see that happening. I don't. Personally, I'm the bike and garbage area, that is okay in my mind, at least okay enough to be passable as is. But another better solution might be out there. But the upper window is still an issue in terms of however that gets addressed. And there might be a variety within, and I'm going back to the commission now in terms of trying to find a path forward for this, and is whether there's enough support in the commission to address it with these comments, or does it need to come back on for final on consent with this elevation being addressed? So to the commission for what your thoughts are, if anyone wants to jump in. Commissioner Uli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I generally agree with the comments made. I'm comfortable with these access doors to trash and bicycle. Having some kind of screen above the door level would certainly, close it off, but I'm also sensitive to the cost. I agree with the vice chair that this wood panel on the second floor window, that plane really should be with the pop-out plane, and the two should be recessed individually. I also noticed if you back out of this so that we can see the other elevations on, where is it? It's another sheet. Mr. Bolton, if you could go to, elevation number 2. That window 106 seems to be awfully tight to that, what is it, that half round kind of corbel that seems to be awfully tight there. So I don't know what needs to happen there so the window doesn't look like it's being swallowed by the pop out, but there needs to be a little bit of space there, I believe, or something needs to happen there.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's hard to model that. So we typically with line work, it's just dropped too far.
Yeah, maybe a little shallower or something so that the window actually reads.
Right.
Other than that, I'm comfortable with these little nuanced things to do one of two things, either give it final now or have it come back on consent to check these nuanced things and give it final on consent.
Oh, sorry, I was unmuted. Anyone else want to weigh in terms of what their feelings are of going? Those look like the two options: come back on consent with these minor things tweaked and give us a little bit more, or try to describe what the changes are in the motion so that you can give it final with those changes included, and that people are comfortable with. Vice Chair House?
I would ask first of the applicant if they have an objection to a 2-week delay to come back to consent to resolve these issues.
Well, thank you for asking. We do. I have to speak up for here. We are trying to submit the plan check the first part of next week. I mean, we could do it the understanding or some written agreements. It's easily get on the wood siding between the two windows and pull surface out with the rest of the pop out. No problem. Clearly a little bit of a scalloped line work here is in error, really, and that certainly not be the case in the actual design. But I would ask that, I want to vote to be taken, would be free to finalize everything and into permits.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
it sounds like it's easy enough for you to summarize in your comments what needs to happen to that pop out on the second floor. And I seem to be the only one that has a concern about the bike and trash enclosure. And I think the applicant understands what needs to be done above window 106. So I certainly wouldn't vote against a final approval today.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Yes, concerning that elevation, I think Commissioner Howes also mentioned that in the drawing, it is not symmetrical in terms of above that left-hand curved arch, the pop out is not symmetrical. That will be addressed, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so that, I think the language for that could be to make it symmetrical about the center of the arch, of the elliptical arch, so that it extends to the right as from the opening of the below the same distance that it already does to the left, because it goes to the full max out, so they can just mirror that dimension.
Yeah, I would also support, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. That's it.
I would also support the that vertical wood siding to be replaced with stucco and as part of the wall, part of the pop out. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or other discussion? Anyone wanting to make a motion? Not all at once. Commissioner Uli? Oh, no. Okay.
I'm just adjusting the light.
I'll take a shot at it. If no one else is going to make a motion, I'll take a shot at it. And because I do think that this project has come. Well, for one, I would start with saying I thank the applicant for really doing a great job of bringing this project to work very well with the EPV guidelines now, and it's come a very long way, and it's now I think a very handsome project. So thank you for all your hard work to get it to this point. So I would make a motion for final approval with the following comments. That on A202, the building 2 south elevation, that the vertical wood siding shown be removed and be replaced with stucco, and that the wall plane of that, where what the wood siding was, to be brought out to the plane of the new stucco pop out. And that new stucco pop out to also be symmetrical about the center line of the elliptical parking garage underneath, or parking space underneath, so that the amount it extends to the right of the opening below is equal to the amount that it currently extends to the left, which is the edge of the building. The detail for all of the swoops, or all the furring out that have an elliptical, the walls that are furred out an additional amount, the 2x6 walls, that the bottom of it not have or run flush, let's say, start flush with the wall and then come out. So there is no jog along the bottom of that swoop, that elliptical swoop, and that is on both the as shown as on building 2 south elevation, and then as well as, can we go back to the other elevation that we were looking at on the other sheet, I think. Yes, there we go. As well as on the detail 2 of buildings 1, 2, and 3 west elevation, right above window 104? 106, window 106, so that there is no step in the wall plane. It's just a continuous elliptical swoop. And then, any other changes that I missed? I would say, even though this isn't an actual action, while the commission would like to see some sort of a grill above the trash enclosure and bike storage, we recognize that the drawing as shown is enough to be acceptable, and that there would be additional cost implications for the applicant, but that the drawing as shown is acceptable. And then any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
All right. Yes, Vice Chair House.
I would suggest striking that last comment because it kind of sets a precedent that we acceded to something because of the cost it would add to a project, and we don't generally do
okay.
that. Not necessary.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point. We'll strike that comment. Yeah. All right. Any other comments that anyone would want brought into the motion?
I'll second that.
All right. Second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion. Any discussion? All right. Let's take a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Lundvik.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan.
Commissioner Mahan?
Mahan votes yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hui.
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Edmonds.
Yes.
And Chair Grunbein.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
All right. And this is not appealable, correct? So, this is appealable. Yeah. So this is appealable to 10 days to City Council. All right. Thank you to the applicant, and thank you all for getting through early.
Yeah, I want to
Right.
thank
commissioners,
Mr. Lemvik specifically for advocating for me on that two-man commission with Commissioner House.
Oh boy.
Thank you, sir. Oh, goody. See you, everybody.
There's nothing like volunteering.
You are welcome, and be a good landmarks commissioner representing the city in that, okay?
Isn't he
Be
always?
mean. He was gonna
Well,
say
I don't
be
wanna say
mean,
that
but
in
it was
public.
on camera.
Yeah, be a good commissioner.
All right.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Good night.
Thank you.